If it means defeating the City Slayers and saving Earth from their terror, will the Earth's mightiest heroes be forced to make an impossible choice? Well, let's hop into the pages of Avengers issue number 5 and number 6, and find out what happens next together, shall we? So then, picking up directly from where the last issue had left off, Captain America Sam Wilson and Black Panther T'Challa had come to the realization that the Impossible City, the strange craft piloted by a group of homicidal aliens known as the Ashen Combine, was not only sentient but actually able to communicate with them. The city says that despite the heroes' best efforts, they're all going to die. And indeed, back down on Earth, the fights are not exactly going our heroes' way. Vision is doing everything he can to try and match the synthetic might of Mirrodin Diadem, who, much like him, is a robotic life form capable of completely bending physics as we know it over her niche. She also seems rather interested in how the Vision is actually able to supersede his original programming, and it will actually circle back to that one later on. Now, as we further learn, the Impossible City itself is not actually evil. In fact, it had once served heroes of its own universe before eventually being captured and enslaved by the Coven. It's seen these guys destroy multiple worlds, and it fears that Earth is going to be next. The city also says that despite our heroes' best efforts to try and blow it up, that wouldn't work. It would still manage to operate at least 75% capacity. But here's where things get really interesting. Even though the city is being forced against its will to work for the bad guys, it doesn't want to actually hurt the heroes. Meaning, as it stands right now, our heroes and villains are at something of a moral stalemate. Back down on the planet, Captain Marvel does everything in her power to deal with the forces of entropy summoned up by Lord Inui, and you know what, I never actually caught on to it before, but his name actually tells us a lot about his character. He does feel ennui. He is the force of entropy, meaning his life is basically one giant big void. He feels nothing, not even for the death and destruction that he's currently causing on Earth. Bummer. Carol throws absolutely everything she can at him, only for him to tank absolutely every shot, saying that he would love nothing else but to be able to feel something, and maybe Captain Marvel can make that happen. The Impossible City is 100% certain that the Avengers will not be able to defeat the Ashen Covenant. As such, it has decided to take that task unto itself, even if that means having to essentially commit kamikaze suicide. Earth would still be destroyed, but the City Slayers along with it, meaning that this would be the last planet that they could ever hurt. It's here that Sam and T'Challa, who have been at odds with each other since this arc began, actually end up standing together in unison for the first time, telling the Impossible City not to self-terminate. Not just because it's the right thing to do, but because they're heroes, they're Avengers, they look at impossible situations all the time and say no, not today. Captain America and Black Panther still fully believe in their teammates' abilities to turn things around back down on Earth, and with that we enter into issue number 6, the newest issue from this week, wherein Sam and T'Challa's good faith actually ends up paying off dividends. It's Thor who ends up striking the first blow, using his mastery over lightning to put all the people of Vatican City to sleep, meaning that the evil idol Alabaster can no longer draw power from their warship, making him essentially weak and punchable. And hey, speaking of punchable, Iron Man ends up turning the tables against the City Smith over in Toronto. It seems that Tony's brand new stealth armor has also borrowed some vision density shifting tech, meaning that he's able to get his way out of the living statue and introduce his foe to some good old-fashioned Earthling rope-a-dope. It's Scarlet Witch, though, who ends up probably taking the gold star for creativity by using her chaos magic to teleport the dead to Antarctica, where there's not nearly as many corpses for him to feed on, meaning it's just him, Wanda, and the Penguins for the final push. Captain Marvel scores probably the biggest, well geez, I didn't think that would work, by overloading Lord Inui with enough endless cosmic power to fill even his gaping void. I said gaping. By far, though, the most cathartic victory is actually Vision's. You'll remember that Diadem had tried to get inside his head by invoking his original creator, who we naturally know as Ultron, and Viz thinks to himself, hey, if you're so damn interested, here's a little taste of his corrupted code, basically the digital version of madness, and you know what, it's too much for even this universe travel destroyer of civilizations to handle. Then of course there's still the Impossible City itself. This is where Black Panther comes in. After all, T'Challa is a master of breaking chains, and if those bombs aren't going to destroy the city, then they can at the very least use them to return control to the city itself, and with that, the day is saved. We even learned that the Impossible City, before losing its memory due to tampering from the Ashen Coven, was actually a prison ship of sorts. The Ashen Coven had actually broken out out at some point in time and commandeered the ship, and even though it can't remember what super team it had served in the past, though I have a pretty good theory that the team was the time-traveling Twilight Corp, but that still is yet to be seen. Needless to say, the Impossible City is free now to self-determine, and as its first big act of choice, it acts if it can officially join the Avengers team to help pay them back for saving it. And I mean, hey, this new Avengers group needed a new base, and what's better than a living sentient space city, I ask you? Not much. And so that was Avengers issue number 5 and number 6, everybody, and ultimately I think I'm glad I read these two issues back to back, because on their own I would have felt they were a little thin. Don't get me wrong, there's a solid story here about the Avengers persevering under impossible odds and still remaining kind and heroic even in the darkest of hours. I would say my big problem with this story was the telling, mainly in that I feel like you probably could have told this same story in about half the time. The Ashen Coven were cool ideas for villains, but I feel like they kind of overstayed their welcome and were ultimately defeated too easily. Yes, I know that was kind of the point, that they all talked big games, but ultimately the Avengers always had it in them to beat them. They just had to think a little bit more creatively. Likewise, it was an interesting stylistic choice to have the majority of the team be broken up and fighting solo fights in what is Marvel's biggest premier team book. I wonder if that's going to keep happening into the next arc, or if we're going to see more traditional, the entire team all at once fighting the same problem. Overall, I thought this was pretty good. The Jed MacKay era of Avengers is still finding its footing, but I'm definitely enjoying it enough to come back and see where it's gonna go next time. Overall, I'd give this one a 7 out of 10. Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers, a lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest. That's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow, and help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye bye.